But great evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
This meeting will also be conducted by audio and video conference without the requirement of a physically present quorum of the Rock Island City Council due to the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker. Because of this order related to COVID-19 health concerns affecting the state and the city, the mayor has determined that an in-person meeting at City Hall with all participants may not be practical or prudent. Alderpersons and staff may not all be physically present at City Hall due to the disaster, and physical attendance at City Hall may be limited. To participate remotely during the public comment or public hearing portion of the meeting, please join by phone at 1-515-519-5074 and use PIN number 573-851-506, followed by the pound sign.
Thank you. Roll call.
Alderman Robinson.
Present.
Alderman Hurt.
Here.
Alderwoman Gilbert.
Present.
Alderwoman Swanson. Absent. Alderman Parker.
Here.
Alderman Poulos.
Here.
Alderman Geenan.
Present.
Mayor Tomes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for a moment of silence.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Public comment. We have several people that have signed the sheet. Is it Joan?
Hi, I'm Joan Wren, and I am here because we have asked for a residential parking on our street, on 37th Street between 14th Avenue and 12th Avenue. And this is due to a bar is going in our neighborhood, and we get to live next door to the parking lot. And when they first came to the neighborhood, I introduced myself to them and everything, and we're friends with them and everything now, and they recommended that we do this parking. And which impressed our neighbors a lot, that they said, you know, hey, you guys need to make this so that my customers can't park in front of your houses, which I think is really great. And the other thing that I wanted to ask for was on our alley, when you try to come out of the alley, especially turning west, because of the Domino employees, they block the entrance and exit very much. And a lot of our neighbors have big trucks, and it's very hard to get in and out of our alley. I have a picture of one employee who had her car halfway in the alley and went in to pick up more pizzas. And it's like, you can't do that, you know? And I don't know if that is something that is totally different that I need to address with, you know, with the, how I got the residential parking, if I could get some advice on that.
There's already a law in the books. They can't. 15 feet from the corner.
15 feet from the
Yeah,
corner.
not from the corner, though. It's probably from the,
That's an alley. It's 15 feet from that intersection.
but they're parking illegally inside of it.
Right.
So they're parking illegally inside the alley, right?
In the alley?
Yeah. Are they parking in the alley or just blocking it?
She just blocked it. I have a picture if you want to see it. I
Yeah,
don't,
that'd be, the police would get involved in that if,
well, what I was
you know,
wondering is, could we have, for the entrance of the alley going east or west, could we have the very first spot made no parking?
yeah, if you talk to the public works director over there, Mr. Bartels,
Okay.
he'll be go, you've already requested the parking, the residential
The
parking?
residential, yes.
It's the same process.
That's what I
He'll be able to
needed
hook
to
you up
ask
with that.
for.
But if someone is parked illegally, despite anything we have, then it's a police matter.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. we hope that's going to be a good bar up there and hopefully a restaurant with it, so.
Better be.
Yeah. Oh, Mike's a great kid, and,
Yes, the whole family is
yeah,
wonderful.
Kathy and their Fred, and yep.
Absolutely wonderful.
Wonderful family.
Sure.
Great. Looking forward to that. Mr. Thurgood Brooks.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Mayor Tomes, at Trains Loud. Mr. Tweet and council. Football camp started today. That's my attire. So I'm looking forward to a 9-0 season, hopefully, with the Rocks this year. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here today to follow up with our study session we had a couple weeks ago. Excuse me. And which I think went really well. I appreciate your time, each of you. And we sent off a amended document for the commission that we had that study session on to each of you. I think that Thursday morning, I believe. And I'm here simply today. I won't be here long, just to kindly request someone on the council to call for the commission to be moved on the agenda for July 26th, which I believe is the next city council meeting, to be moved for a vote, kindly and respectfully. So for at least we could see where we are. And I think it's something that's, I would say is, I will applaud all of us for the work we're doing, because we may eclipse that 60-day mark that we talked about, I mentioned originally. So I would appreciate that. And like always, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have Laura. She's attending virtual.
Yes, Laura Whitman, 2026 43rd Street, Rock Island, and David Geenan is my alderman. I'm calling you today to ask on the topic of the 8.5% total water and sewer changes. I'm concerned, is there a plan to notify homeowners in a timely manner prior to the August deadline? August 1st deadline. In addition, is there a way to contact the homeowners who need information regarding this if they are so concerned? And in Rock Island, many people don't have internet or newspapers, so perhaps a letter sent to people in Rock Island or some other method to inform people about these changes. That's all.
Okay, no, appreciate that feedback.
Do you have any thoughts on the August 1st deadline?
Yeah, this is Randy Tweet, the city manager. I'm not sure what you mean by an August 1st deadline.
I was told that there would be an August 1st deadline for the water and sewer issues. Is that incorrect?
Well, there was an August proposed rate increase that would go into effect then, but the council hasn't even voted on it yet. So until the council votes on it, nothing will move forward.
So in other words, it may not be an August 1st deadline. Okay, I understand that. Okay, and do you have any thoughts on how people might be informed about this throughout the city?
Well, we can talk about some options. One option is to put it in the water bill, and people would see it when they receive their water bill.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Yeah, excellent. Would that be able to be done in a timely manner?
People are billed, there are 13 billing cycles, so it takes 3 months for the bills to go out. So if you put it in the
How-
water bill, then it goes out once a week for 13 weeks to 13 different
okay.
groups. So you would see it
Okay.
when your time comes to get the water bill.
Okay, and will the people be able to get it before things wrap up in your area? Before this increase goes into effect?
Well, like I said, council hasn't voted on it yet, so I can't tell you when that's going to happen or when people would be notified or if council would even approve it.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for your information. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your concerns, your comments.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
And that's all I have that have signed up for public comment. So then we're on item number 7.
Minutes of the June 28th, 2021 City Council meeting.
Move to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item number 8.
Minutes of the June 28th, 2021 executive session.
Move to approve the executive session minutes.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
hey.
Oop.
So a couple, on those executive session minutes, there was an error citing the exception of why we went in to executive session, so those will be corrected for the official minutes. The minutes themselves won't change, but the exception will change to reflect what was on the agenda at the time.
Both exceptions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item number 9, Rock Island update. Couple items. We got music and fun with Balbaloo. Rock Island Public Library brings acclaimed family performer Babaloo to Rock Island's Lincoln Park Bandshell for a free concert on Thursday, July 15th at 10:30 a.m. The event, which is part of the library's Reading Colors Your World summer activities, is free and open to all ages. Babaloo concerts are a blend of music and comedy and usually run under an hour. Families should bring lawn chairs and other seating and social distance as needed. There's no rain date. Blackhawk State Historic Site. The Blackhawk Historic Site is offering a free event closed by critters. Close by critters. I got to get there. Close by critters. On Saturday, July 17th, from 10 a.m. to noon at Watchtower Lodge. Discover surprising facts about common animals native to Iowa and Illinois by examining furs and mounted specimens up close. Create a plaster cast of a track made by one of the animals to take home. Space is limited for this free event, so participants must call to pre-register at 309-788-9536. Tell on Your Neighbor Awards. Each year, residents of Rock Island are encouraged to tell on your neighbor by nominating the yards in their neighborhood that they find to be the most appealing or most improved. The City of Rock Island's Beautification Commission will review all entries, and awards will be announced at the August 23rd City Council meeting. Nominations can be made through August 6th. Digital photos of the nominated yards are required. Send the photo and address of the nominated property to the Community and Economic Development Department via email at douglas.catherine@rigov.org. So it's DOUGLASS period KATHRYN at rigov.org. For questions, you can call 309-732-2905. That's it. Thank you. Item number 10,
Presentation of the Firefighters Pension Fund and Police Pension Fund preliminary actuarial valuations results for January 1st, 2021, and assumption discussion.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, Sue Simon of Nyhart will be presenting the actuarial valuation results, along with the discussion of the assumptions. Last July, the council approved recommended pension assumption changes based on the results of the last actuarial assumption review. Those assumptions are outlined in the attached memorandum dated July 15th, 2020. And below is the history of the police and fire employer contributions, which is funded through the city's property tax levy. In the last column that has 2020 is the actual budget for this current year. All right, so a similar memo will be presented 2 weeks from tonight based on tonight's discussion and decisions. So without further delay, I'm going to let Sue take over, and don't worry, we're not going to go through the 70 pages there. We're going to go through the first 12 pages, which are a summary of all those pages. All right, Sue.
Good evening. So we're going to start on the quick update on consolidation. Is that going to be up on the screen? Sorry. Oh, it's not, okay. So just a quick update on the consolidation. So assets are scheduled to be transferred to the consolidated funds prior to June of next year. Fire has already selected an investment consultant and has actually done a lot of additional work in moving forward with the consolidation. The police are a little bit behind where the firefighters are, and probably what's going to happen is they're going to kind of mimic the procedures that the fire fund has in place. The second part of consolidation, will you still need an actuary after consolidation? Because with the consolidated funds, they're going to have an actuary for the fund, but there probably will still be a need for an actuary to evaluate your individual pension plans. There are things like the GASB accounting reports, which may or may not be covered by the actuary who handles the consolidated funds. There's also things like true cost calculations for police service transfers, other things like projections that might be of interest to the council and to other board members in looking at changing assumptions and looking at potential contribution amounts. And so other general questions in consulting might be, you might need an outside actuary to look at that. And then in terms of assumption updates, on the next page, we have recommended that this year you continue following the step-down approach in the interest rate assumption that has already been put in place. So last year, the assumption was 7.1%. We're recommending moving to the 7% interest rate assumption for 2021. The goal of this was to eventually get down to the 6.5% rate that the Department of Insurance uses to value the tax levy, but in a step-down fashion. The 6.5% assumption is based on a composite plan with asset allocation of 45% equities, 45% fixed income, and 10% real estate. After consolidation, it's unclear what that new interest rate will be for the consolidated funds, but the goal here was to continue to move along the agreed-upon path. And then the other assumption that we would recommend changing this year is the payroll growth assumption, which impacts the amortization of the unfunded accrued liability, which comes into play, as you'll see, in determining the recommended contribution each year. So last year, you were using a 3.7% assumption, and we recommend moving, as you had plan to the 3.5% assumption. Just a little bit on benchmarking. So 2020 NCPRS Retirement System Study. So the study was conducted annually, and this past year we had 138 state and local government pension funds responded to the study. 53% of those respondents were local government funds. 47% of the respondents were public safety funds. The key findings from this year's study was that the average funded ratio for the pension plans was 75%. Rock Island's fire plan's funded ratio is 32%, and the police plan's funded ratio is 40.2%. The average interest assumption increased from 7.24% to 7.26%. The recommended interest assumption for both police and fire plans is moving in the different direction from 7.1% to 7%. The amortization periods have lengthened to 22.9 years from 22.4 years. The city's amortization period is following the 90% by 2040, so the city's amortization period has moved to 20 years for this year. The next slide talks about the mortality assumption. So just to level set with the council that as we have a more generous mortality assumption, assuming that people are living longer, that's going to increase pension costs because the longer people live, the longer they will collect payments from the pension fund. We are right now using the same mortality assumption as the Department of Insurance, which is the Society of Actuaries RP 2014 table based on private sector mortality experience. I have some sample life expectancies that you can see under the Rock Islands, which is also the Department of Insurance. So you can see that at current age 25, a person's life expectancy under the table we're using for the pension plans is 85.6%. And then there's a new study that's come out where it's a new public mortality table that was specifically created based on looking at different jobs within the public sector. So there's a teacher's table, there's a public safety table, and then there's a general public table. So if we look at those mortality rates, the longevity is, there's longer life expectancy in those. So if, after the next Department of Insurance experience study comes out, it's likely that they will go to some form of this public 2010 safety table. And in that case, depending on what iteration of that mortality table they move to, it's likely that, there will be some recommendations to reconsider the mortality table that we're using for the valuations and potentially increase life expectancy and other contributions. This slide shows an overview of the valuation results for the Firefighters Pension Fund. So the first column is the 2020 valuation, so this is the last year of, compared to last year, just for your reference. And then we have two other columns. So the middle column is if we use the current demographic data, but all of the other assumptions are as of last year, so that you can see what the impact of the new census data has been. And then the last column is also moving towards the new interest rate and the new payroll growth assumption, so the 7% and the 3.5%. So if we look at the funded percentage, last year the firefighters plan had a 31.6% funded percentage. This year, if we kept the assumptions the same but used the new demographic data, that funded percentage would have come up a little bit to 32.1%. But then when we go ahead and we move to the new lower discount rate and the lower payroll growth assumption, then we're almost back to where we were last year with a 31.8% funded percentage. So when we calculate the recommended contribution, this is going to be subject to the tax levy minimum. But the basic idea is that we're looking to fund the pension plans to 90% by the year 2040. So we're using the entry age normal cost method. And so the normal cost is going to be the cost of benefits accruing during the year. So as everybody is earning another year of service and they've got pay increases coming in, they're going to earn a little bit more benefit. And so that's what the normal cost represents. Then we strip out the employee contributions because the firefighters are paying a portion of these costs through their payroll deductions. And then we amortize that unfunded accrued liability. So you can see the amortization line. So for this year, we're looking at about a $3.2 million amortization of that unfunded accrued liability as compared with the total normal cost, which is the total cost of new benefits accruing of about a little over $1 million. So in total, we would recommend a contribution this year of $4,079,988 for the fire pension, and that's compared to the minimum tax levy contribution of $4,067,905. As a percent of payroll, this contribution is 85.2% of payroll, as compared to last year where it was 78.6% of payroll.
And that's to reach 31.8% funding.
Well, it's actually 31.8% funded right now.
Okay.
And when you put the new contribution in, we're moving towards being 90%
Right.
funded over the next 20 years, but
Okay.
that's where we are right now.
So, yeah, we went up 468,000 or so last year.
Pardon me?
We went up about 468,000 last year.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is,
Any other questions on this one? I'll move on to the police pension fund if there's no other questions. Okay, a similar story on the police. We're seeing a slight increase in the funded percentage. So last year we were at 39.7% funded, and if we looked at everything the same as last year but just new census data, we're up a little bit to 40.7%, and then it drops a little bit back down to 40.2% if we use the new assumptions of 7% and the payroll growth of 3.5%. So just like I mentioned on the fire, we have the normal cost, which is the cost of benefits accruing that year. So for last year, the cost of benefits accruing was $1.2 million, as compared to a little less than $1.2 million this year. We have employee contributions that are paying for part of those accruals, and then we have the amortization of the unfunded, which is a little bit larger on the police side because the unfunded is a little bit bigger. So what we're recommending as far as a contribution is $4,354,876. That would be the recommended contribution, but it is subject to the tax levy minimum, which is $4,440,359. And so the recommended contribution for police will be $440,359, which is 73.6% of payroll. And I didn't have the calculation of the tax levy contribution here. It's a very similar calculation. We're still looking at funding the unfunded to 90% by 2040, but just a slightly different calculation. Okay. This slide just shows a history of the counts of the participants in terms of the firefighters and the police. So we have non-active participants who include retirees who are already collecting payments. beneficiaries of those retirees who've died. We have some that are what we call terminated vested, so they're due a benefit in the future. They don't currently work in the fire or the police plans, but we're holding a liability for them when they start to commence their payments. And then we have the actives, who are the people who are actively working. So you can see that police is coming down a little bit in terms of the active employees, but the non-actives have stayed pretty constant. And similarly, the firefighters the non-actives have stayed pretty constant, but the actives have also stayed pretty close. So in terms of the average age, firefighters are a little bit, the population is aging slightly, so the average age this year is 41.5 versus 40.3. Police are staying level at 41. And this is due to movement within the population, so that, we're just looking at the average age of the overall group. Service, firefighters are increasing on their average service and also increasing on the average plan compensation, and police are actually coming down a little bit in average service, but again, increasing in average plan compensation. Yes?
So what does average plan compensation mean?
So it's
Is that
really,
for 1 year?
so what it's looking at is it's taking everybody in the plan who's actively working and how much they're making, and we're just averaging everybody's salary over the number of people that are actively working.
Okay, so my next question is then, how can the funds be sustainable when you have more non-active participants or beneficiaries of the benefits plan than active people putting money in? Even though the city's putting in their chunk.
I think that's part of it, is that the city's putting in a pretty fair chunk to pay off the cost of the benefits that are already accrued, which is the unfunded accrued liability.
So, okay. Well, I'll wait till you're done, and then I have some other questions related
Okay.
to that.
Well, I was done on this slide. Do you want to ask your question now or just keep going?
Well, it relates to stuff that's in the evaluation reports, not what's
Oh,
in
okay.
your slideshow.
Yeah, we can go to those. Can I just finish these
Yes,
slides? And then you can tell
absolutely.
me what page you're looking at. Okay. So this slide shows the market value of assets in the plans as well as the actuarial value of assets. So what we do is we use a market value of assets so we evaluate the market value of assets. And in terms of coming up with a contribution, we then take a smooth value, which is called the actuarial value of assets. So we're smoothing in gains and losses over 5 years. So when, one of the plans has a really good year, you're not going to see as big of a spike in the assets that year because we're smoothing those gains in over a 5-year period. But also when a plan has a bad year, you're not going to see that big dip in the assets. So it's trying to smooth things out a little bit. When you go to look at the accounting side of the house, we are going to just use the flat market value, and that's pretty consistent with accounting rules across, both public sector and private plans. So in terms of both firefighters and police had a good year with the assets this year. We had 9.7% return on the market value of assets for firefighters and 8.4% for the police fund. Not quite as good as last year. Last year was 17.1 and 16%, but still a pretty decent year. But you can see that smoothing effect when you look at the actuarial value of assets because we're smoothing in some of the gains, we're seeing a return on the actuarial value of assets of 8.5%, and for the police, it's 7.8%. So it's slightly lower than what the market value is this year. And I touched on just briefly the fact that we have two different valuations that we look at. We look at the funding valuation where we come up with a recommended contribution, and then we look at the accounting valuation under GASB. So the big difference, is what asset value we're using. So we're using the market value versus the actuarial value for GASB. And then the other part of GASB is that we have to use a slightly different discount rate or an interest rate to evaluate the liabilities. And the reason for that is that there are some rules within GASB that if the plan is not sufficiently funded to a certain level, we do a projection and we look at what point the plan is projected to run out of money to cover the benefit payments. It's called a solvency test. And to compensate for that and to also, look at the liabilities a little bit more reasonably, we then use a blended interest rate to calculate the liabilities. Instead of like a 7% interest rate like we're using on the funding side, for the accounting side, we're using a lower rate because we're blending the discount rate we would normally use with the municipal bond rate from the point where we're projecting insolvency in the plan to come up with a 5% interest rate, which causes the liabilities to be higher and gives you a little bit of a better perspective of, what that might look like. So this slide shows a comparison of the funding valuation versus the accounting valuation. So for the firefighters, we have a 7% interest rate on the funding side versus a 5.33% interest rate on the accounting side, the GASB reporting. So we're looking at kind of a significant increase in the liabilities because you're, basically dropping almost 200 basis points. So the accrued liability on the funding side is $81.4 million, and then on the accounting side is $99.5 million. And then we're also using a slightly different asset value. So on the funding side, we're using that actuarial value of assets, the smooth value, so it's $25.9 million. And then on the accounting side, we're using the market value, so it's $26.7 million. So you've got a difference in the funded status of, 31.8% versus 26.8%, just due to that interest rate and slightly due to the asset value, but mostly it's the interest rate. And then similarly, if we look at the police, we're looking at a 7% interest rate on funding and a 5.32% interest rate on GASB, the accounting side. So the accrued liability is $103.3 million versus $129.4 million. And then the asset value, the funding side is using the actuarial value, which is $41.6 million versus $42.1 million for the market value. So for the police, they have a funded status of like 40.2% versus 32.5% on the accounting side. So that's the end of my summary slide. So we can flip over to any of the reports that you'd like to go through.
Okay, first, just a comment. I noticed that there's present value liabilities, funding liabilities, accrued liabilities, unfunded liabilities. I just remember that we had our auditor present our audit last meeting, and I just remember we had almost $205 million in unfunded liabilities.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So on page 5 in both of the reports, the police and fire,
Okay.
it shows the funded ratios. Let me get to that too. So police has gone down 2% in the last 5 years, and for firefighters, it went down 7% in 5 years. So we're funding more money, we're putting more money in every year, but the funded ratio keeps going down.
Right. And part of the reason for that is that step-down approach in the assumptions that you're using. So you're consistently taking your interest rate assumption lower every year. So the value of the liabilities is going to increase just because of that.
So we're, compared to that study that you quoted of I don't know, government or
Yeah.
public sector,
Uh-huh.
where the average funded liability was 75%.
Right.
We're woefully underfunded. Is that because people who've been funding answered the survey versus those who didn't fund very well?
Well, I think part of it has to do with, depending on the size of a pension plan and depending on, which pension plans you're talking about, they might have different funding policies. So for a lot of the municipal plans, we're trying to fund it 90% by 2040. And so that's different than some of the other plans who have a higher funded percentage.
Right. So on page 15 in the reports, the recommended contributions. So police's recommended contribution has gone up 25% in 5 years, so that it's now 74% of the payroll. And firefighters, it's gone up 15% in the last 5 years, so that it's more than 85% of payroll. So eventually, our pension contributions will be 100% of payroll, or even more than that. Is that correct?
I don't think that's really what's going to happen. I think part of what you're seeing is that the payroll number is changing somewhat. So, as you have fewer and fewer, like on one of the plans, you had less actives this year than you did the year
Right,
before.
right.
So the payroll number is going to be smaller. And a lot of the contribution that you're putting in is calculated based on not the active people who are accruing, but it's that amortization of an unfunded liability. So that's really kind of what's driving the contribution amount. And then if you take that recommended contribution and you divide it by a payroll number that's not quite as big because of fewer people, you're going to see a bigger percent of payroll. But again, it's not because of the new benefits accruing necessarily, it's because you're still trying to pay off that unfunded.
The unfunded liability, right. So I noticed that on page 17, the police they're retiring younger and at a higher pension benefit. That's not the same for the firefighters. And in terms of eligibility, so if you were hired before January 1st, 2011, you need 20 years plus age 50 to collect. But after January 1st, 2011, you need only 10 years service, but you have to wait to age 55 to collect,
Right.
right? So is there a difference in survivor benefits? So like, does the survivor or any beneficiary, do they get 100%
So
of
if-
what the active person or the former person?
If you look on the page 21 of the plan provisions, this is where you see what the death benefits are for these
Right.
participants. So if someone dies in the line of duty on the police side, the benefit is 100% of the final salary is paid to the survivor.
Okay. So it's based on the classification?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And if they die outside the line of duty, and these are people who haven't already made an election as far as what their benefit form is,
Okay.
then you've got differences in terms of when they were hired, what the survivor
Right.
benefits will be.
So do employees have to pay more to have a beneficiary option?
No.
Do they contribute more? No, it's the same.
Right.
Whether you have a beneficiary or you don't.
Exactly.
Okay. What do you think is going to be the impact of consolidation of the funds and how it will impact us as an individual entity?
Well, I think that, in terms of an interest rate, what we've been hearing is that maybe the consolidated fund would be looking at maybe a 7% interest rate, so kind of where you are right now in terms of that. Supposedly, with the consolidation, they're going to have a bigger pool of assets managed all together.
Right.
And so they might be able to hire,
Save costs.
save costs and, get better share classes of some of the assets that you're investing in and hopefully achieve a slightly higher return than each of the individual funds could earn
Right.
on their own.
I don't know if
But
you
it doesn't-
Mark sits on that committee, by the way, for the
Right.
state. Okay.
But it doesn't impact our unfunded liabilities or the amount we need to put in the,
No,
right, okay.
sorry.
Thank you very much.
I did not understand the question, so I
And
apologize.
actually, Alderwoman Gilbert,
Yes.
under the Tier 1, as you were referring to,
Oh, yes.
January 1st, 2011,
Yeah.
Police officers could retire after 10 years of service, but they had to wait until they were age 60 to collect.
Oh, okay.
So it was a longer, and it was only, and after the law changed, they would be entitled to 2.5% of their final salary or the highest 6 months prior, whichever was greater. And that, of course, that would be what they would get at age 60.
Right. I think
So-
all the pension plans have some similar type option if you take it sooner with less years or something. Yeah.
There are a lot of things that it's funded by it's actually often referred to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a three-legged stool. You have the city's contribution, you have the officer's contribution, which is 9.91%.
Right.
And then you have the interest
Interest.
from your investments. And again, it's very complicated for someone who's not been subjected to it or had the privilege to work in it. But if you sit down and look at it, you are right that there were many cities who did not fund properly. There were some cities who actually took out and funded it ahead of the curve. I think Rock Island has taken a very responsible move in the last, I want to say, 10 years, trying to play catch-up for years that we didn't.
Right.
And again, it's going to affect our residents. What's going to happen going forward? We're in discussions on that right now, of finding an accurate assumption. And as I was talking to them earlier, 5% is not accurate, nor is 8%. So we're trying to find out,
Right.
what that number is. So,
It's just that between our debt payments, principal and interest, and our public safety pensions, that alone costs us over $20 million in our budget.
understandable.
Yep.
Yep.
And
It's
I
a
guess
lot of
that's
money.
what I think I'm some clarity around. So we have some numbers from you that's recommended. When I was talking with residents over the 4th about our liabilities, how much money did we allocate from our motor fuel tax that gets to go to roads now? Around 468,000 or so?
All of it.
All of it, it's around 460. We're talking, if you add the 4.079 plus the 4.35 million that you're recommending for our contributions, when we get to budget talks, we automatically have to add about $8.4 million to our budget. That's a big chunk.
Yeah.
And then, and that's why we would see a percentage of raise in our property taxes, and that's something that we know that, at least I communicate, that's a portion of the percentage of our raises that we're proud of. We're making sure that our public safety and that we're going to catch up where we didn't. But it takes a big chunk out of our budget every year.
It does.
8 million.
But the risk is, and what's happened in the previous years, and everything else, with that, now it's 7%, or going to 7% return. We had it a lot higher than that, and they were not getting those kind of returns. It was, in some cases, on equities, it was a loss in some of those years, and that's also where the problem runs in, is that we've had some good, I'll say good times the last several years. The market, as far as equities, the market's done fairly well.
But in the
But
conversation,
if you take a turn, that could change real quick on percent from funded and everything else. That could change dramatically and drop if the market drops and continue, or would continue to decrease. That could make a big change.
And I think the conversation is shifting from, at least what I'm gathering around council, is we're not pointing fingers on what happened and why we have this big liability. It's about what solutions we are to maintain that we get it fully funded by the years we need to within the budget that we have and the creativity that we can piece things together.
I think what you're going to see, and the hope is, and we're working very hard to make this make sure that the goals, the intent of the consolidation, which was to have a larger investment pool, hopefully brings some relief to the citizens while maintaining the responsibility that we have towards our employees. Again, similar to the IMRF, it's the police fund is a $8.5 billion fund. The fire fund is similar. So when you have that kind of pool to invest from. And again, the cities are still going to have to take the taxes because they're going to have to transfer that money over to the consolidated fund.
My concern or issue in the future is that we cannot, I don't think that the return on investment is going to sustain like we have seen in the last couple of years, that it's going to drop at some point, that bubble's going to break, and we're going to have to be able to accommodate that. But the lower that we go, it's pretty obvious, if you take it from 7% to down to 6.5% or whatever, means the larger premium we got to pay. And so it could end up going up even higher and more exponentially to try to keep it growing as a percentage versus just even maintaining at that 32 to 40% or whatever it is. So we could see it, my opinion, and it's unfortunate, the negative side of this, our premiums are going to continue to grow.
We're seeing the same thing, though.
Contributions are going to continue to grow exponentially for a while to compensate for that.
We're seeing that, we are seeing though, and I think that you can, the data will show that with IMRF, if they tell us that, if they make an actuarial assumption of 7%, and we get the true assumption is 6.5%, then IMRF sends us a nice little note saying, by the way, you owe us X amount of dollars for the money that we didn't make. That's not going to be the case, at least at the current legislature, is not going to be the case as if we anticipate a 7% and it comes in at 6.7%. I haven't heard anything from the legislator or from our liaison that says that, that there's legislation pending that's going to mimic or mirror what the IMRF system does.
True, but if you want to hit that 90% by 2041, that's going to automatically force some of that.
And that is also on the table, that target has moved in my 35, 38 years of involvement, it has moved 3 times. Thankfully, because we've already passed the first target.
That's where we're going to get the biggest relief, if there's any relief, is if they take it out to 2050 or whatever it is. That's where we would get some relief of any consequence.
Well, Alderman Poulos brings up a good distinction. IMRF tells you every year, this is how much your contribution is going to be, and if, it comes up short, well, here, you owe us this money. But with the public safety pensions, it's up to each individual city to decide what their assumptions are and how much money they're going to contribute every year.
Well, that won't be the case after
The consolidation?
After the consolidation, the consolidated fund will do in fact, the city will save money because you won't have to spend money on an actuary.
Sorry.
I thought you said we still needed one
Well,
for Gatsby stuff.
yeah, what I've heard is that you would still need one, and
Yeah.
similar to how you calculate the tax levy today as the minimum, but you might want to put in a recommended contribution that's higher than that minimum. It's possible.
And we would love that from the consolidated fund.
Well,
That would be great if we could put it off to the cities, because that's going to be a daunting task.
Yeah, I guess you really continue to take it up a higher level. That's, to me, is why cities, but even, we'll say Rock Island, we need economic growth, so it doesn't continue to put it on the backs of the current property tax holders.
You couldn't be more correct if you tried.
That's exactly. I mean, that was why so important, because this number's growing so large that we just got to work on trying not to put that on the back of the property tax holders. Property taxes is to have new revenue, whether it be a new building, whether it be sales tax, whatever it is. We need new revenue of decent size to help this,
I had a few
Wait,
questions,
I'm
if
sorry.
I may. Regarding your, how you got to making the recommendation that you did. Do you take historical perspective into consideration when you make that recommendation, or you just kind of look at it and say, okay, they're trying to get to 90% by 2040, here's where the interest rate is, here's where all the numbers are, and here's how much? Or getting to what Alderperson Gilbert said, well, they've been putting in more money for the past 4 years, but they're not getting, do you take that historical context into perspective, or you just look at a tiny little snapshot of data?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of both. I mean, we're reevaluating the contribution every year. So every year, we're looking at how the assets have grown, which incorporates past contributions and past investment return, as well as what the liabilities are. So, how people have retired or new people who are coming in and how their pay has adjusted. So we do take a snapshot every year, but we re-amortize that whole unfunded accrued liability every year as well. So we're looking at both assets and liabilities, how they've, grown to this date. So it's including the historical perspective, but it is calculated at one point in time every year.
Okay, so basically, the reason in which I asked that is there any concern that so 2040 is 19 years from now, is there any concern in 14 years from now, we're still looking at 40% funded because,
Well, it's going to depend on how much, if you're actually making the recommended contributions every year and your assets are doing, kind of what we're assuming. So if assets are returning 7% every year, or, on average 7%, and all of the other assumptions are being met, then you will hit 90% by 2040. To the extent that, like the mayor said, if assets have a couple of bad years, you average that in, and are you hitting a 7% return? I don't know. And
Because if we have a bad year, we still have to pay the same out, right, in benefits. In terms of other clients, I mean, you're the expert, I'm sure you have other cities. How are we doing?
Well, I think in terms of like what I see from your investment return, I think overall you're doing probably around the middle of the pack. Some cities have really hit it out of the ballpark with their investment returns. Some cities have not done quite as well, and they're kind of trailing what their assumption is. So I think.
But we're all seeing a big part of our budgets go to the liabilities that you're seeing.
I think everybody's seeing that.
There's some returns out there, I'm not saying city, that you've seen double-digit returns.
well, we had double-digit last year, right? Do any of your customers, have any of them utilized like a pension obligation bond so that they get the pension ramp so it's not like this, but now it's just like this?
Actually, I'm working with one municipality right now who's got a preliminary recommendation to fund up to I think it's like 90% of their liability. They're going to use a pension obligation bond to fund that so that they can have predictability around what their actual payments are, because they're paying off the bond and then they're going to pay off the normal costs. So, it is much more predictable.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a question necessarily, but the ramp is the scary thing, because this is what it's like in 2021, let alone in 2039.
Yeah.
So if we can somehow at least level out the cost, because every year it goes up, 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 and it's going to continue going up like that until 2040. I mean, we can't stomach the budget now, let alone in 19 years
And
from
the
now.
problem is if you try to get on a level ramp right now without doing something like a pension obligation bond, you're going to look at a pretty big increase in the contributions like now to even out the,
Something drastic needs to happen to help lessen the burden that we're going to see compounding exponentially over the years if we don't start really looking at this, is what I hear you're saying.
yeah.
But we're at 32% and 40% funded. Getting to 90% funded in 20 years?
We're on the schedule to do that but it's going to be right now. If everything
Well-
meets the numbers that they're recommending, we're
Well,
there, but.
And if
But
anything
it's-
tells us you can't, people are looking 3 years now for market trends because it's just so volatile and shifting.
Yeah.
We don't even know what will happen in the next 5 years with our market, let alone the next 10 or 15 years with rates.
I think that's a fair statement, but
Yep.
I think there are options that you can look at. I think the pension obligation bond is definitely something to consider, especially with interest rates tending to be
Yeah, you
still
are paying
very
the
low.
interest, that's the downside, but
So-
you're consistent.
For one way or another.
You're consistent, but you're paying the interest.
It's being used in quite a few cities in Illinois, so.
Yeah. Well, that does your bond ratings and everything else, but.
Or we could just raise property taxes to pay the principal on the one big chunk, like you said. I'm sure that'd be popular.
Not.
We don't want to just borrow for it.
Okay, is there any other questions we have?
Thank you so
Creates
much.
Some more
Thank you.
creativity and problem solving on the table. How we create a budget, honoring that liability, but also doing the needs of the city.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're on to item number 11.
Mayor Tomes will close the regular meeting and open a public hearing regarding the amended HUD CDBG Program Year 2020 Annual Action Plan.
All right, I'm going to close the regular meeting and open a public hearing. Is there anybody, and I don't know, Colleen, or anybody want to speak publicly about the HUD CDBG program for 2020 annual action?
I have questions if nobody
Yes.
wants to speak.
Does anybody want to speak? I don't know if anybody's virtually out there. I don't know if you can tell. Anybody virtually? Or anybody in the audience? Not seeing anything, so it's yours.
You.
Oh, no. Time out?
The public has to speak.
Not the council. And close it and then the council.
As soon as the public hearing closes, then the council can ask their questions.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Fine.
I understand. Thank you for the clarification. Is there anyone, last call, anybody in the public that wishes to speak? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting. And now, if you wish to speak or a question.
Thank you. So for the benefit of our viewers and our residents, and for me as a new council member, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about these funds. So that's why I have questions. So from what I gathered from the amended plan, so we had a first round of coronavirus funding, $649,000. Then we got a second round of another $230,000, which was divided up into public service of almost $60,000, and then economic stabilization of $170,000. So how was the first round of the coronavirus funds spent? How many recipients? How much money was dispersed? Do we have any money that was unspent?
Can I do one thing real quick? I think really we should have a motion and for the discussion
We
time
didn't
for
have
this.
the motion?
We did not, so
Oh,
I
I'm
apologize.
sorry.
No, it's my fault. I didn't stop it. So if we can get a motion on the table first, please.
So moved.
Second.
You want to read this motion here?
Move to accept and approve the program year 2020 annual action plan as amended.
Fine.
And I'll second that.
Moved and second. Now discussion, and you've already asked the question. I apologize.
Yeah,
I
it
just
was, the plan is being amended because we got the second round of coronavirus funding, right, Nathan?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
And that was the 230,000?
The 230,000, yep.
And that was
Correct.
how do they refer to it as the
September.
CBGG
CDBG CV funding. So in a normal year, under normal conditions,
Right.
the city of Rock Island would receive an annual allotment from HUD as an entitlement community. We would know what that amount is going in, and staff would prepare an annual action plan
Right,
with guiding how that funding would be spent. There would be a series of opportunities for the public to engage and participate in that. There would be typically a 30-day comment review period, and then it would come to the city council for consideration following a public hearing. 2020 was not your typical year, and because of that, the city received 2 additional allotments of CDBG-CV funding. The first chunk was the $600,000, which was received, or which we were notified about at the time we were notified of our annual allotment. So those 2 dollar amounts together were put into the annual action plan. Now, because this wasn't a typical year and because it wasn't typical conditions, HUD informed all of its participants, including the city of Rock Island, of various changes to the rules and procedures for how to process and seek comment, whatnot, for your annual action plan. They cut the review period down to 5 days and encouraged an expedited process.
Right.
So that all went through, and the city council approved the annual action plan on May 11th, 2020, with the first allotment of the $600,000. The second allotment was unexpected, and we were informed about that in September of 2020. We, in that allotment, received $230,580, which brought the grand total up to $879,699.
Right.
The program areas of public service and economic stabilization were both identified in the initial annual action plan as being the priorities for the $649,119. And so those were continued with the $230,580. And I also would just like to note that the amendments that are being proposed include only 4 pages of the annual action plan and include only specific dollar amounts. Basically, we're adjusting the dollar amounts to reflect the additional $230,580 that was received.
All right, so you're not giving it to new organizations, you're just adding it to those in the plan already?
Right. And I also would note that on 3 occasions during the year, got the dates here for you. Here. On July 27th, November 9th, and December 21st, all of 2020, staff came before you with memos for budget amendments. And while the public hearing was delayed and happening until tonight, we did keep the city council informed as to the receipt of those additional funds and did receive direction from you in your approval of those budget transfer memos on how that funding should be spent.
Mm-hmm. Like I think we gave some additional funding to Spring Forward and that type of
Yes.
stuff. We voted on all those, I remember. Yeah.
So that was before my time.
Understood.
So for the public's benefit too, as well as for my own.
Sure.
So since
I can give you some numbers.
you don't seem to be getting at my questions, but so is there a detailed financial report available for these coronavirus funds?
So I
There's-
just sent you the memo from December 20th that council approved, and that has a detailed expenditure of the $879,000.
Received all the funds?
It does, but it doesn't say who got the $230,000. It's the whole coronavirus funding of where they went.
I have some numbers I can share with you right now, but we do not have a report available of how all of the funding was specifically allocated. And I don't know that that's a requirement of HUD.
Well, so I've read this action plan, I've read the other action plan that's coming in a couple weeks, and
Sure.
I've read the performance plans. It's like, and I get, like, you're writing the report for HUD, so it's
Right.
like written in HUD code.
Yes, correct.
So I'm trying to decipher the HUD code to understand exactly what we're funding, how much we've spent this money on, and who received the money.
Okay,
Like, I know you had small businesses that received grants.
right.
It reads to me like there were also nonprofits that
Right.
received
I guess I would
funds.
just like to clarify that when we're coming before you with these public hearings, we don't have that information available in terms of who's going to get the specific funding. We're allocating the areas of where that funding should go. Because we're sort of several steps ahead now.
Right.
I can share
This-
with you.
Yeah, this is
that
unusual in
This is
that-
unusual, correct.
because there was
Normally,
an
we wouldn't
additional
have this
al-
specific information
Right,
available.
I understand
So
that.
what I can share with you is that in terms of economic development, which I think is also referred to as economic stabilization.
Right.
We had 2 rounds of grant funding. The first round included 44 grants totaling $104,807.50. Round 2 included 43 grants totaling $337,500. There's a balance remaining of $100,102.50. In terms of public service, the total spent was $322,888.67, with a balance remaining of $14,398.33.
So do the unspent funds then just get rolled over to the next year?
We are exploring options for how to spend that money. One of the areas that we're looking into right now is a social media campaign that would include media buys that would advertise that our businesses are open and willing to accept customers now that various restrictions have been lifted. That's one area where we're looking at spending down some of the balance.
Can we use some of that for hiring, helping them find employees?
I don't believe so.
Marketing? Okay.
Let me just real quick, I'd like to mention Colleen Small-Volman is here, our budget and grants manager, and Tara Sipes is also on the line too, remotely. She's our economic development manager.
Can you provide that information to us, though? I mean, I understand you gave it to us tonight, but can you send us an email with that information?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
been presented to you, maybe not the 2 new aldermen, but the other ones have seen it as those grants were doled out when the economic development team submitted their updates.
Understand.
And what I sent you tonight is sort of a total. It shows the total for the business grants. It doesn't break it out per business, but we do have that information, and we can get all that for you.
But so businesses received money as well as nonprofits, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and again, understanding, I was not here when all of this was approved. So I just have a
Understood.
couple other questions about things that were in this HUD report. One of which mentioned a retooled economic development revolving loan fund. Is that what's going to replace our CURLIF loan?
I'll let you respond to that.
All right. So, no, when we did the annual action plan for 2020, we had hoped that we would have the retooled CURLIF and have it through HUD, have it approved, all of that. Because of the coronavirus, that did not happen. We hit the ground running, and we were just trying to keep up with all the coronavirus needs that we had coming into us. But I can tell you right now that we are working on tying up all the loose ends that HUD wanted for the CURLIF, and we will have something, a new set of policies and procedures that will be ready to be vetted by HUD, the CURLIF committee, and the council in August at the latest. So this is all sitting on my desk right now and getting done. Go ahead.
So do you know how much money, was there money left in the CURLIF fund
Oh,
when it
there
was
is.
shut down?
It continues to, it's sustainable, it continues, people are continuing to make their payments and everything. And so it has, and if you look in the annual action plan, the draft for 2021, there is almost $400,000 sitting there ready to be spent.
Okay. And then will there be new funds added to that?
No.
Or you don't know yet?
There
No.
will not. The fund itself has to be sustainable.
Okay.
So one of the things that I want to point out to you, so for the first round of economic development grants that we gave out for CDBG-CV, those grants were only up to $2,500.
Right.
So then when we went once HUD gave us more information and told us how we could spend it and started to inform us, then we opened up that economic development grant to $10,000.
Right.
They could get up to 10, so, but one of the things that you have to understand going into this is that no matter what happens with the remainder of the money, it has to prepare for, respond to, or address the pandemic in some way.
Right.
All right, so whatever we do with that money going forward, the remaining money, it's going to have to fit that continued parameter that HUD put out there for that CDBG-CV money.
Okay.
And I do it all day. We had some really excellent public service grants that came across, came through our office. We did a Genesis pop-up where they were giving people flu shots. They set up out at the Watchtower site, they set up a tent, and they had so many people come through there and get those shots. HUD loved it. HUD thought it was great, We were able to help in some ways that we wouldn't normally be able to for our public service money. Our biggest funder that the biggest project now, we gave them $175,000 for rental assistance. And to date, they have used $131,844. So we expect them to spend out that balance of $43,155 within the next month and a half, 2 months. So all that rental assistance money is being used and utilized appropriately. So I feel very confident and very proud of, one, the staff and the way we got that money out there and the way that we did. But additionally, the groups that got the money, they've done an excellent job of, expending it. So we have to have this money spent by 2023. I think we should be done spending it, if not this year, by the middle of next year. So we will have met our obligation.
So I agree with you. These are wonderful things that you've done with the money, but if I hadn't asked the question or you started telling, how would we know these stories or hear how the money was spent? Because it's not in the report.
Well, it should be in the CAPER.
Okay.
It should be in the 2021 or 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, and it'll be itemized there, but we have no problem, okay, so now that we have Nathan, we can really start to, do the things that we want to do, need to do, and providing a report like that, we're happy to do that, and that is not a problem at all. We want you to know where you guys spent the money. Mm-hmm. I think one reason that we didn't worry about it too much is because as we were funding things, we were adjusting the budget, and we were bringing that to council, so council saw exactly where that money was going all the time, who was getting it, what they were getting it for. So, now that we have 2 new council members, we're happy to put a report together and get that to you.
Great, thank you. I have a couple more questions. There's a housing developer mentioned in that action plan who's doing 50 new affordable units on vacant lots in the city?
Yes, but that's not a part of this.
Right, I know that.
All right.
But it's in the report, so I was
Yes, it
just
is.
like,
So the Solomon site,
is that the Solomon site?
that is the Solomon site.
But the Solomon site, the way it's written in the report made it sound like this developer's doing infill houses on different vacant lots. This is Solomon site is several lots together.
Still technically infill.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I think it was
And-
5 lots contained in that.
Well,
Sorry,
IDA
this is
considers
Tara.
it scattered site
Okay.
because there's a street that goes through it. But, you know, it's,
This is Tara Colleen.
Yes.
The Solomon site is actually made up of 15 individual lots that are near one another, so that's why it's written that way. I apologize for the confusing nature of the language.
7th Avenue down to where Solomon actually was, King Solomon
Correct.
was.
On Fifth Avenue, and it's about 3/4 of a block there along Fifth and 11th.
I thought it was Solomon, but I just wanted to confirm that. So, and another program that's mentioned in there, but it's not part of the coronavirus funding, the home program. So we have 27 lots left, right?
Tara, you want to jump
Yeah,
in there?
that is correct. We do, there are roughly 30 lots, you're correct.
Okay. How many have we sold in the past 5 years?
In the past 5 years, I believe we've sold 2 lots. In the 2.5 years that I've been here, I've had 3 what I would consider very serious inquiries. 2 of them fell through at the financing stage because it's a little bit more difficult, unfortunately, to get financing to build a home than it is to purchase an existing home. But we're looking at opportunities for additional potential assistance in navigating that process.
That's the program to purchase a empty lot to build a home.
Right, yeah, for $5.
For $5, $5, the city will pay closing costs and waive your building permit fees if you are building a residential home in which you intend to live.
Right. Okay, so my last question is about, so you had public meetings in May. One was the stakeholders meeting, then one was for the public, but there was no public participation.
Right.
What can you do differently to increase more public participation, especially getting feedback from the people that these funds are supposed to be helping?
Well, honestly, to answer your question, virtual meetings seem to be the thing that get people to come to and participate. I've been doing this for the city of Rock Island now for 4.5, almost 5 years. And when I hold a public meeting in person, no one comes. I'm there by myself. I will say I did do it once, and Dylan Parker and Vince showed up. Yeah, they came, and, you know, I walked them through everything, but typically no one ever comes. And I have had the best luck. So the coronavirus was horrible, but if you had to find a silver lining, the silver lining is that when I do these meetings virtually, people show up and they have something to say. It was the most exciting time when I did the 2021 public meetings because I've never had that much participation or people show up. And so I am going to keep doing it that way so that I can keep people informed, keep them coming, and, you know. When we did the 2020 public meetings, the stakeholder meetings, they were not required. But I felt very strongly that I needed, in order to be able to inform the council about what the boots on the ground people were experiencing, I needed to get their input. And that is why I did those meetings. I didn't have to. HUD said you don't have to, but I did. But I also wasn't very good with technology at the time, and I thought I was recording them, and I wasn't.
Oh, I know what that's like, to think you're
So-
recording. It
And
doesn't record.
so I apologize for that, but our public meetings this time have been recorded, you know. So I honestly believe that doing this virtually is, it is the way to go. And it's the way to get people and their input.
I agree with you. I think it's so much easier for people to attend virtually. I know that I talked about this year's meetings, the 2021 meetings, with a lot of people, and I know Alderman Geenan did as well, and that contributed, I think, to the turnout
Yeah,
as
and
well.
I think that's something to recognize is that, thank you for allowing council to help you. I sent out the invitation to the public meeting virtually to 120 nonprofits that we fund, and I think we had some nonprofits that normally weren't at those meetings before.
Well, and I have, just a little backstory, I don't want, but when I got here, I had no stakeholder lists. I had to start building them myself. And as I have gone through over the last 4.5 years, I have built a pretty extensive stakeholder meeting list. So when I am going to have the stakeholder portion of our public input, I invite them all. As many as have reached out. But I will say that during this round, I had new people show up. Safer Foundation, I've been trying to crack that nut since I got here. And they're on board now. They're like, why didn't we know about this? And I'm like, well, I kept talking to you, And so we have a lot of new people that are part of our stakeholder process. So, I really think that the virtual part of it and the council, sending it out in their blasts and stuff, that helps a lot.
There was a lot of enthusiasm at the virtual meetings that you held this year. A lot.
A lot. And I was very excited. And so anyway, I'm going to turn it back over. But if you haven't, I'm sorry, yes.
I do have for both and for Randy as well and the council, I have an observation to make. So it's curious to me that we have this additional 100,000 or whatever is left to spend on coronavirus CDBG money. And we have to spend it on recovering from the pandemic. And staff is coming up with ideas like advertising to let people know that our businesses are open. But yet, at the same time that our staff is having this conversation internally amongst themselves, we're having a much broader conversation about how do we spend this $26.5 million that we're getting from the ARP. And it's the exact same discussion. How do we use this money to recover from the pandemic? And so I guess I would say, if you have until 2023 to spend this money, do not spend this money. Do not do the advertising campaign, because in the process that we are pursuing with the ARP, the long-term community recovery plan process that we're developing, you will get input from the public as to how we need to recover from this pandemic. And so your $100,000 can go into the 26, obviously a drop in the bucket or whatever, but I guess it gets to this council's often discussed thinking on how do we align all aspects of this city to be rowing in the same direction. And if we are already embarking in a discussion citywide about how do we use the financial resources at our fingertips to recover from the pandemic, it occurs to me we should take, it's the same thing, and we should be in sync with one another. And so I would request that CED have that be a part of the process of our long-term community recovery plan, and not to be going off and doing your own thing separate from.
I don't have a problem with that, but I want you to understand that we would never do our own thing. What we have here is, so we would bring this to council. We would never can't spend this money without bringing it to you. So we would never do that. Most of the things that we funded were things that you guys brought to us anyway with the coronavirus.
Right.
The only, and we have no problem with that. The only cautionary thing is, remember, this is HUD money, and there are a lot of rules, and there are a lot of strings, and there is a lot of reporting. So when you start thinking about that, you can't mix, you have apples and oranges. All right, they are supposed to do the same thing, but they're apples and oranges. So I will be here reminding Nathan, reminding you guys, this is apples and oranges. Apples and oranges.
Yes, but I think we can, I don't want to say piggyback, but we can utilize the infrastructure that we are developing through this long-term community recovery plan development to generate the public input into how we need to recover from the pandemic. And then we can say, well, we have $100,000 from CDBG CV money to pay for that.
Add it
right?
to the resources that we deploy in the overall plan. The 100,000 that's remaining, I had a thought of, boy, I'd love you to sit down with the Doris and Victor Day applications that we're voting on next week, because there's a lot that this CBG could leverage with what we're funding to get a lot of the needs of recovery met. So it's kind of how we're deploying our resources together as a community with philanthropic partners, with the city and the overall recovery plan, with other philanthropic partners. I think we can maximize how we leverage the dollars and still do it in a way that meets all the points that HUD will be happy with in reporting.
And that's fine, as long as it's helping people, not organizations.
Yep, exactly what we did with like the Wi-Fi
Right.
grant. That
That
was in coordination with,
Well-
we pitched in with a bunch of others, yeah.
I actually ended up putting another $10,000 into
Yeah.
that. So at the end of the day, we put $20,000 into that Wi-Fi program.
And then we were able to use that number then to leverage some philanthropic partners to throw in at least 25 in addition to that. So then we had 50,000 to work with.
All you guys got to do is call us and tell us you're doing this, and we'll be there, you know? I mean, that isn't a problem, you know? We'll sit down, we want to. You know, I want to make this as simple as I can. So, you know, that's fine. We will, you know, hold off doing anything. I just am going to be here saying apples and oranges, apples and oranges.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just would like to conclude by acknowledging Colleen, Tara, and other members of the CED department for all of their hard work in administering this additional $800,000+ on top of our normal allotment this past year. Thank you.
Very good. We are now needing a roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan, Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item number 12.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding the sale of city-owned property located at 1923 9th Street, parcel 103-536, pin 160-230-4006, to Ms. Ruby Perkins for $815.00 plus closing costs. Second reading.
Move to pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 13.
Claims A through C. A, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $29,407.79 to McClintock Trucking and Excavating Incorporated, Silvis, Illinois, for services provided at 2607 31st Avenue, 4005 4th Street, 4502 8th Avenue, and 2400 29.5th Street as part of the Sewer Lateral Repair Program, Project 2564. B, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $13,563.90 to McClintock Trucking and Excavating Incorporated, Silvis, Illinois, for services provided at 2132 23rd Avenue as part of the Water Service Repair Program, Project 2526.
Move to approve claims items A and B.
Second.
Moved to second. Any discussion?
I have a question, comment. So on the two McClintock invoices, the date of service, they list a week-long date on each of the invoices. So the date that they actually did the repairs, again, is not on the invoices and it's not on the memo. I mentioned this at the last meeting.
The date of that the work was completed is actually on the force account section on the backside. And so this first one I'm looking at for the work was completed 4/5 to 4/11. That's when the work began and when the work ended. And that's what I was mentioning at the last meeting about the
So it took a
force.
whole week, it was a week-long project?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
there's several days in between for temporary patches or permanent patches, depending on, the type of repair. So they do the repair, then the concrete crew comes back in and does the permanent patch or a temporary patch. So it's not just a 1 or 2 day project. Usually it could take up to a week, could take longer if it's during the middle of winter.
Just as long as the dates are on the invoices and in the memo, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
I need to recuse myself due to the nature of my employment.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
5-0, motion carries. And then C, report from the Human Resources Department regarding payment in the amount of $20,586.84 to David G. Morrison, City Attorney, for services rendered during the month of June 2021.
Move to approve claims item C.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 14.
Claims for the week of June 25th through July 1st, 2021, in the amount of $771,136.98. July 2nd through July 8th, 2021, in the amount of $278,815.07. And payroll for the weeks of June 14th through June 27th, 2021, in the amount of $1,568,114.65.
Move to allow claims and payroll.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos, excuse
Aye.
me, Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
You don't get 2 votes? Said it twice.
You can have it.
Item 15.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding a proposal for maintenance repairs to the settling plates and supporting framework at the Water Treatment Facility, Project 2843, recommending the contract be awarded to General Constructors Incorporated, Bettendorf, Iowa, in the amount of $128,625.00.
Move to award the contract as recommended and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Need to recuse myself from this one as well due to the nature of my employment.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
5-0, motion carries.
Item 16.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding a 1-year agreement with Quad City Arts to develop and operate a public arts program for the city at a cost of $18,000.00.
Move to approve the Arts Program Services Agreement and direct the city manager to execute said agreement.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Well, I'd just like to thank Kevin and the team at Quad City Arts for taking on this partnership. A question for, I don't know, Kevin, if you can speak to this, I don't know, but maybe Nathan or Randy. It's my understanding that the current City Arts Commission is in the process of developing another arts plan. We had one done in like 2015, something like that. And we've been in the process. I don't know where we are in that
That's not my
process.
understanding. Essentially, as I understand it, the current arts plan, and forgive me, I don't have the dates of it, it's either
It's 15, I think.
completed or it's getting close to its expiration. Will just essentially expire, and we're going to move toward a model that will really have yearly outreach with the assistance of QC Arts on board
Yeah.
to help inform what types of arts programming we're doing in the community, rather than relying on a plan that's prepared at a moment in time and then administered over a certain number of years.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 17.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding a request to vacate a group of improved and unimproved alleyways adjacent to or surrounded by properties owned by Augustana College. First reading.
Motion to approve the vacation of the described sections of right-of-way and their conveyances to Augustana College, that the utilities easement be put into place for the same, and to consider suspend the rules and consider the ordinance.
Pass the ordinance.
Pass the ordinance.
Pass, I'm sorry.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Do you want to clarify that, Mark?
I think you just did.
All right. We're going
Roll
to pass
call.
it tonight.
We're passing it.
Alderwoman Gilbert.
Aye.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Robinson.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 18.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding the sale of city-owned property located at 721 14th Street, parcel 097-454, pin 073-530-9006, to Mr. Kenneth Clark for $1,000.00 plus closing costs. First reading.
Motion to approve the sale as recommended, authorize the city manager to execute the sale agreement and consider the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert.
Aye.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Robinson.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 19.
Clarification, does that mean that comes back to us next time?
Yeah.
Okay,
The motion was to consider, I believe, yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted clarification.
Report from the Traffic and Engineering Committee regarding a request to remove a handicap parking space in front of 1112 3rd Avenue. First reading.
Motion to approve the request and consider the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Do we want to suspend the rules or have another reading on this one?
I like that one.
I just would like to raise the question, because this means the parking, the sign will have to wait another time, right?
Move to
need to change it.
amend.
I think we should probably, I think you'd have to withdraw the second
Can't amend it.
and then have a second motion. In other words, if there's no second on the original motion, then it would die for not having a second. Then someone could make a motion to consider and suspend the rules so that you can do it tonight.
Unless Alderman Robinson, you want to have it come back. I just
No.
wanted to point
No,
that
I'm fine.
out.
Who's going to remove the second? Was that Dylan or was it
Dave.
Dave?
I'll remove the second.
And Moses, would you like to make a new motion because it died of a second?
So consider to suspend the rules and pass ordinance?
That's correct.
Yep.
I'll second.
We're getting so good at this.
Exactly. Moved in second. Assume there's no further discussion. Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert.
Aye.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Robinson.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 20.
Report from the Traffic and Engineering Committee regarding a request to install residential parking, Type B, on the east and west side of 37th Street between 12th and 14th Avenues. First reading.
I'll make a motion to approve the request, suspend the rules, and pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert.
Aye.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Robinson.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 21.
Report from the Traffic and Engineering Committee regarding a request to ban large truck traffic on 7th Street between 4th and 7th Avenues. First reading.
Move to approve the request, suspend the rules, and pass the ordinance. Is that right?
Consider.
Consider.
You got it. You got it. I did.
Does this come as a request of neighbors?
This is coming from a request from the residents. So what's happening is that trucks are going to Dorn Trucking, and they are actually, the time I got called, they ripped down the cable lines that's across the street. But previously, it was actually a power line that was ripped down. So their GPS routes them the correct way, but they take a shortcut. So they're just tearing up the street. So for safety of the residents, and who knows what will happen if those trucks keep going down that street, we provides doing this to ban them from going down that street at all.
Great. Thanks.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 22.
Report from the Human Resources Department regarding the appointment of City Manager Randy Tweet as the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund authorized agent pending the hiring of a new Human Resources Director.
Move to approve the appointment as recommended and authorize Human Resources to complete IMRF Form 2.20 and submit it to IMRF.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 23.
Report from the City Clerk's Office regarding a plaza activity event application from Steve's Old Time Tap for the 9th Annual CCKMA Car and Bike Show on Saturday, August 22nd, 2021, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with street closures of 17th Street between 2nd Avenue and 3rd Avenue, and 3rd Avenue between 17th and 18th Streets. A request for the outdoor consumption of alcohol in the fenced-in area in the adjacent parking lots, a request for sound amplification, and a request for the waiver of the permit fee as the event is a charitable fundraiser.
Move to approve the event and requests as recommended, including street closures and waiver of the fee, subject to complying with all plaza and liquor license regulations and subject to being closed down early if complaints are received.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Woman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 24.
Report from the City Clerk's Office regarding a request from Steve's Old Time Tap to hold an outdoor event with music for the St. Patrick's Day Parade on Saturday, August 28th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with street closures from 17th Street between 2nd Avenue and 3rd Avenue, and 3rd Avenue between 17th and 18th Streets. A request for the outdoor consumption of alcohol in the fenced-in area in the adjacent parking lots, and a request for sound amplification.
Move to approve the event and requests as recommended, subject to complying with all plaza and liquor license regulations and subject to being shut down early if complaints are received.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 25.
Report from the City Clerk's Office regarding a plaza activity event application for the Rock Island Grand Prix to be held on Saturday, September 4th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Sunday, September 5th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. A request to close 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Avenues between 17th and 20th Streets, close 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th Streets north of 5th Avenue and south of 1st Avenue, and close 4th Avenue at 24th Street from Friday, September 3rd at 5 p.m. to Monday, September 6th, 2021 at 6 a.m. A request to use a portion of parking lot C from Wednesday, September 1st through Monday, September 6th, 2021 for the storage of equipment, and a request for a waiver of the permit fee.
Move to approve the event
Second. Oh, sorry.
and requests as recommended, including street closings and the waiver of the permit fee.
Someone's in a hurry. Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 26, other business.
So Randy, are we in position to bring that item that Mr. Brooks brought up to the agenda?
I've only received comments from one alderman so far.
On the commission?
Yeah,
That was mine.
or two, I guess. You sent me some.
We can put it on the agenda, right?
Well, it's not ready to put on the agenda because if you're going to have committees, you've got to outline, that's going to review something, you have to outline that whole process of how things are going to be reviewed. All the rules and regulations need to be in there.
Isn't that included in the ordinance language that's been sent to us?
Is not,
What's an ideal timeline?
I don't know, I don't have any input from the alderman yet.
Is that something that the city attorney drafts?
Up to this point, we haven't been asked to draft. I think they were talking about, I think the discussion was, what are the potential options? Eventually, I'm sure it would be something that the city attorney's office would have to draft, probably much in the same way we've been working on other issues, but that would have to come through our office, I believe, that's correct.
Right.
And that took, that the Human Rights Commission has taken a number of months, so it's not a quick process. But first I need input from aldermen to decide if they're okay with it as written, or they want to make some changes to it, and I can't really just go with 2 aldermen.
Well, I met with Thurgood and Annika Amelia last week, and they addressed the concerns that I had, so.
Can you send me, I guess, something on that then? Because I got yours and it had some cross-outs on it, so.
I don't understand what we're missing. I mean, I'm looking at this Word document that was emailed to all of us.
Well, nobody has given me an opinion of whether they want to move forward on it yet or not.
Well, but I'm asking you, put this on the agenda.
Well, so.
Remember the one time that I was voted down unanimously because I wanted to, what was it? I wanted an ordinance that removed the ability to suspend the rules or whatever it was, right? Remember that? And I said, I want this on the agenda, and it was added to the agenda. Even only one alderman during open other business said, I want this on the agenda. It was added to the agenda, and it got voted down unanimously except for me, right? So why can't we do the exact same thing that we did there with this? Take this and put it on the agenda.
If that's what the aldermen want on there.
I guess that's what my understanding was. My responses to the document and to the proposal, I was okay with everything else except for the issues that were addressed and negotiated during our last study session.
Well, I don't know if all those items you brought up weren't changed in the final document we received.
Well, that's why we vote. I mean, the fact that we have to have 4 aldermen, which is a majority, to tell you to put something on the agenda before it even goes on the agenda defeats the point of voting most of the time. So let's just put it on the agenda. We can do that. We don't even have a process by which we add things to the agenda.
Well, we do. It's, if 4 aldermen want something on the agenda, is the process we came up with.
Is that codified in the city
It's not
ordinances?
codified, but that's the process we came up with.
Correct. But we've done it other ways, like when my
I don't
suspended rules
remember that.
ordinance
But again, if you're
tanked.
going to form a committee to look at something, you've got to outline those procedures on there, and I don't know how you vote on it without the procedures.
It's right here.
I didn't receive the one with the procedures on it then. I guess I have the wrong document.
Alderman Poulos, would you want an opportunity to make comments to it, or you send them
Well,
into the city
I
manager?
did download it, and I was making some adjustments to it. I have not completed it yet. Some of it, I will send those over to the city manager.
Mr. Hurt?
I have additional things I'll email over as well.
I'm good with it.
Okay, that's fine.
Good.
And Judith has done it, and Dave has done it.
So I guess I've got to make the adjustments people want and then send it out and see what everyone thinks, or?
Who wants adjustments here?
Mark,
I'm gonna
Mr.
make
Poulos
some-
is
I've already
going to
made
make
some
some
adjustments
adjustments.
I'm going to reread it.
Mr. Hurt,
and then
Judith,
yes.
you had something, but maybe you've not done it yet.
I had questions.
Okay.
And they addressed my questions in our meetings.
Okay.
So
Dave, you had some
I'll
adjustments, right?
reread it.
I had,
Send
my
me-
adjustments were based.
So you don't have any questions? Okay, 'cause
based
you
on
had some
any
strikeouts
yeah,
on it.
sorry.
I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
My adjustments were basically, I'm good with the document and whatever negotiations the other council members would like to make with the resolution.
I just need to get, if aldermen have some input, I want them to be able to have some
I'm
input
good.
into it before I
I'm
put
good
it
to
on the
move forward.
agenda. But again, whatever you aldermen want to do.
So these rules and regulations that you're talking about for forming a commission,
Well, so typically, if a committee is going to investigate something, you outline first the criteria, what items can be investigated, and then you do the process, how the process works, and it comes before the committee does it. It's just like the Human Rights Commission.
This isn't
But I
that
thought we
body.
got rid of that part.
We didn't get rid of any of that.
Yeah, there's nothing in here about
Well,
investigating.
then I don't
There
have
is.
the latest one.
There's about investigating.
I don't have the latest one, Mr. Brooks, so maybe you could send it to me.
Can he comment?
No, typically not at this stage, but if you could send us the latest version.
Send me the latest version. I don't have it.
Version to you the same day I sent it to
It-
everyone else.
And then it
I
shows
must have got the wrong
investigating.
one then.
So I said in the study session, then all the changes we made were
sent back right
according to what we discussed, which should be a public record. And again, we sent that exact negotiated document, which does not include investigating anything.
Okay, the one I have does, I must have received the wrong one,
Same
or I
here.
have the
It
wrong
talks
one.
about
or
investigating.
Both of us received that.
We sent it again, but we sent it to 8 individuals.
Okay. For whatever reason, I got the wrong copy then.
We were discussing in the study session that we took, that part was
We
coming
did,
out.
but then when
Subpoena
I
part was
received
taken
it,
out,
it
but
was
not the
still in.
investigating. The words investigating are still in there.
I'll review it again. When he
If you would,
resends
please.
it, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll review it again.
I must have the wrong copy, so.
And one of the things that, just from our standpoint, I guess it kind of depends on if we're trying to prove that we're going to have a commission, or if we're talking about having it set out as a full-blown ordinance as to all the things that happen. Obviously, we would want to take a look, offer our opinions anyway on that. This is a document that I haven't seen, so I guess being asked to give that opinion on something that I have not yet seen, we would like to have the opportunity, Hector and I would like to have the opportunity to look at that, and I see him nodding over here as well. And in much the same way as we did with Civil Rights Commission as well, just to make sure that we don't think that we're running afoul of anything. That's the only, that would be our concern.
May I make a suggestion? So that for the next meeting, perhaps we could have the legal opinion, the changes that Alderman Poulos and Hurt, and any other changes.
Oh, yeah, Alderwoman Swanson. She hasn't inputted.
And review that?
Right, yeah, I mean, that's exactly, we will not be able to have it on agenda, but we're going to review what the document, what the changes would do, yes. Potentially, I don't know the staffing as far as in timing of the attorney's office, I can't speak for him. And how quick everybody gets those
I
adjustments.
mean, we'll be happy to look at it as soon as we can and try to turn it around as fast as we can. But on the other hand, we would always try to err on the side of caution of let's do it correctly rather than do it quickly. If you say, hey, we want it done in 2 weeks and we think that for some reason we cannot, we will let you know that. We want to make sure that we have a process that would not be in violation of any provisions.
It'd be
Right.
tough to do in exactly 2 weeks because we, obviously, to get it on the agenda and posted, it's less than 2 weeks.
Right, but I'm suggesting that we have another public discussion of the amended document, plus the legal opinion, if they're able to have it available.
Okay?
Okay, so by next city council meeting, unless legal says we can't do it because we're in court all month, or, all week or something, right? We will have your opinion on the contents of what's been presented and whatever modifications other people want.
That we'll talk about it in other business again next week, in 2 weeks from now.
Can we say that everyone's input or comments is due by Wednesday or something?
Sure.
Give it a hard deadline? What works for
completely up to
everyone?
you.
That'd be up to the elder people who want to set the deadline. They haven't responded.
Mr. Hurt, can you, how quick could you get your comments in?
Give me a couple days, I'm fine.
Mark?
Yeah, I was just looking for it to see if I could pass it along because I've had it pretty much finished and saved it, and I've saved it on the other computer that was completely rebooted.
In theory, several days, you could have it to
Yeah.
the
I
city
mean,
manager.
take your time, but deadlines help.
Okay?
Take my time as long as it's in by 9 tonight.
Yep.
Sure that our city attorney gets the copy. I don't know
Once I
if
get
he.
the new one.
Yeah.
I just sent you what you sent out.
I just sent it to
July
you,
2nd.
Randy.
Oh,
Just
okay,
forwarded it to you.
okay.
All right.
I'll look at it.
Is there anything else for
Oh,
other, yep,
yeah.
go ahead, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna cut it off.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to give a report of my ward meeting that I held on June 29th. We had over 40 persons in attendance, both in person and online. We had people in attendance from other wards who were just hungry for information. The majority of attendees loved the meeting, and the consensus was they want more ward meetings. So the only glitch, other than Google Meet wouldn't record again, that afternoon, a resident sent me a link to a Channel 4 video about a possible developer for the Watchtower site, and I didn't have any knowledge of that at the time. And so that kind of put me in a difficult position as a council member, that the media knew before I did about that. So that was the only glitch.
Moses had one too, I think. It was great.
Definitely. I mean, for my first one, I think it was a success. I think I had like 20, 25. Great questions, great answering, you know, we got some information. I was able to gather some communication cards. So building that database so we can continue on the process.
Yeah. I think Alderman Hurt
Yep.
joined you, and
Yep. We did it, we combined for the first one, just to try to, you know, join forces on this one. I think it was success.
okay, great.
Even if we get one person, it's a success, so.
Yeah.
That's true.
Meeting this morning with Project Now and the South Rock Island Township Supervisor as it relates to emergency assistance. Just a gentle reminder, a week from Saturday, July 24, is when the state is going to end their moratorium on evictions. The federal ending of the moratorium is going to be July 31, 2 weeks later. Project Now is equipped to help folks with eviction diversion programs. I would suggest perhaps we call now and get on a list before the jam gets further down the line. 793-6391 is the phone number for Project Now. They encouraged us to get it out to our ward residents who are facing eviction. The moratoriums have been extended and extended, and they're not going to be extended anymore. They'll be running up. Other thing is that, 4th of July, we always have this discussion on council about fireworks. And this was the first 4th of July where, I get it. I'm walking the neighborhood and I'm talking with folks who've saved up, who want to blow off some steam for a 4th of July, and encourage the neighborhood to be responsible with it. Keep it down. But this was the first year I had to look at a couple residents with tears in their eyes about people who are not being responsible. And how do we respond as a council that has a code for fireworks in a way that's really sensitive and responsive to those who suffer from PSD, from those who are veterans, from those who have animals that don't like loud sounds, who have to deal with 2 years of hell every single year. We have a policy in place to enforce those who are reckless with our code, with our fireworks. And the one thing I feel like, for me at least, and these are neighbors of mine who are upset with me, that council isn't addressing these 2 nights, as we also recognize that we have a law that you don't blow off fireworks and people aren't going to follow it at 4th of July. I've talked to the city manager and with the permission of the police chief and have invited Mark Poulos to join. We're going to start just a task force for those. I have 2 names already from my ward that want to come together at a task force to see what exactly is our ordinance on fireworks and what are some ways in which that perhaps we could work to communicate a different way. So next year, my neighbors and those who suffer from PSD and who don't like the 2 nights of fireworks at least know we had an attempt to really look and be informed and maybe find some other solutions as a community. We're taking a list of names of those who'd like to just sit on the task force to learn. I think we're going to try to meet this month. Please let the city manager know, any of the alder people know, and we'll make sure we'll get you on that date when we can get it. I think the most responsive way is just to say, we hear you, and let's look and see what we have, and then report to council maybe some recommendations for next year.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yes, sir.
So we do have an ordinance that restricts that, and typically you call the police, they come out, they issue a citation or a ticket, and then if they have to come back, it's another ticket or something like that, right? So, I mean,
we have a lot of neighbors who don't want to have to be the witness for that ticket because they have to live across the folks that are lighting fire. There's a lot of things within it that I think people would want to look into and perhaps maybe look at it with a different lens in our own code that could be adjusted a little bit.
Typically, what a lot of do is, once again, we try to be, I'll say, kind and pedestrian, is if they see the people, they have to see the people firing them off and everything else. A lot of times, especially if it's young kids, they ask them, or even adults, they ask them to stop. Right. They don't cite them right off the bat.
Right.
They say, hey, can you please stop and everything else. The second time around, they could be cited. It's a $50 fine. Mm-hmm. It's not, there's never, it's a civil type of fine that they there's never, if they don't pay it, it's not one of these things, there's a warrant out for their arrest or anything else. It can actually, they could go to municipalities, but if they don't show up there or don't pay it, a lot of times it just goes in the file that just doesn't get paid. Unfortunately, there's never criminal type deals to it. The fine can go up from there if they're potentially.
But having a body where there's informed, what is a Class C? Because it's illegal to do anything over a Class C. And that type of stuff.
You mean firework? Anything that goes in the air.
Right, but a lot of the folks, people calling me don't understand that.
Gotcha.
And I want to create a forum where we can at least provide that, and then perhaps.
I mean, I truly understand. I just don't want them to feel that we're not doing anything.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
They try to respond to them and stop them. You got to catch them, obviously,
Definitely,
so to speak. Otherwise, you don't know who to accuse or do anything else. And sometimes it's shoot and go type deal. It's they're gone because they know that they might get in trouble. But so it's a difficult one, and there's obviously when you're understaffed, it's difficult and all the way around. But it's a concern by a number of people. But there's others that feel that they want to celebrate.
I get it.
And so it's hard to stagnate that also. It's a very difficult situation. Many cities have fought over this for a number of, even over in Iowa, when it's legal, they have these situations. And try to limit the hours and days and trying to enforce that is a very, very difficult. And I'm not saying just because it's difficult, we ignore it. I'm just saying it's a tough one to do. But like any citation, typically, long grass, people have long grass. We try to notify the people ahead of time, and give them one chance to do it on their own. It's the second time then it begins to escalate, versus we just right out of the chute fining them.
I spoke with the chief, and he was very informative, and so it's not that the police department doesn't want to do something about it, but in many cases, their hands are tied.
By the time they get there, they're already done shooting them off. So you're making the call. By the time they respond, that they're already done. So now you got police officers chasing around calls all night when half the time those guys are not even shooting them by the time they get there.
And they are there. They do talk to the people, and they stop. They say, "Well, I'm done," and they stop, and it's done. And then there's those that are going to be belligerent about it. But,
And again, we're gonna approach it. We're gonna listen to what the residents have to say, and again, with the police chief being so cooperative, sometimes if there is a solution, I'm sure that we'll come up with some suggestions. I don't know that there's going to be a solution. I'm not going to sit here and try to say that this is going to work, but at least we're going to listen to and try to get some suggestions.
Yep.
Create some space to collect the stories so the vignettes we have are more accurate too. We're hearing from residents as well.
But keep in mind, there's only so many officers out there on the street, and you have to allocate them, and you have to decide where do you want to allocate your resources. Do you want to allocate them chasing fireworks all night, or do you want to allocate them handling more serious calls? And again, when we can present a plan, we can present some ideas, but that doesn't necessarily going to equate a policy or a new order from the chief.
Absolutely.
He has a responsibility to the community, just as we do.
anything else for the good of the cause?
I
Yes.
just have some questions for Randy on status of some things that are just kind of hanging out there, and maybe you could just give
Okay.
us some time frame. So the RFQ, where are we on that?
I just got the updated version from Thorson today, and I have to see if the changes were made, and then I'll send it out to everybody based on the last changes I received.
And then that's the final A-OK and it goes.
Well, not if I get more changes.
Okay.
Are you getting much input?
I'm getting input from you and Mr. Geenan.
I apologize, I didn't send my input.
It's all right, but, I mean, I assume if someone doesn't give me anything, then they're fine with the language.
What's your preference to have that out? When do you want a due date?
Well, as soon as the council is ready. It's the council's RFQ, so when the council is ready, that's my preference.
When are we ready, council?
I think we're ready as soon as we get the language pass it around, everybody signs off
Ow.
and says, okay.
Well, as soon as we see the
Yep.
latest version.
No response is okay.
So,
I haven't been responding because I'm okay. Let's do it.
So do you need to hear from us that aren't responding that we're okay, or?
If
Nope,
Moses has,
I have comments right now that I have to make sure they've been made. I don't know if they were all put in.
Okay.
And then I will send it out. And if I receive more comments, then I'll make more changes and send it out. And however many iterations the council wants is what I'll give you. And when you're ready to go, I guess if
I'm fine with that.
four of you say, we're ready to go, then we're ready to go.
Well, it's better that it's done right than we realize too late. Oh,
did you have another question?
yeah, the status on different things. Strategic planning.
Right now, it's scheduled for October 19th, Monday, October 19th.
I thought we were moving it up.
I know there was a suggestion on that, but there's a suggestion to leave it. There's been no decision made on that, on who's going to do it or when the date would be. Right now, it's October 19th.
So we don't know if we're going to have extension to it yet.
Well, council hasn't made any decisions yet on that. Right now, we're just focusing on the RFQ, and then we were going to do the, I guess I would like to hear from council on who you want to do the.
I'm more than fine with having the extension office do it. Fine.
And that's, again, that is your,
I will not be
it's
there on
your
October 19th.
planning, so it's
We'll be
whenever
there.
you want it,
Nope.
and whoever you want to
We
do
can't do
it.
it then.
I have,
Do we need to reschedule then?
I teach on Tuesdays and
Water
Thursdays.
sewer rate increases, did you know when that's coming?
I haven't received any comment yet from the alderman when I sent out what it would look like if we used the ARPA funds to buy down
Not up to council.
some of that rate increase. If you want me to bring it forward as is, we can do that at the next council meeting.
Well, until we do the recovery plan, we don't know yet.
I would just bring that forward as is, and it's ready to go. I hadn't heard any comments from anybody whether to proceed or not, but I'll bring it forward on the 28th.
I want to just clarify a date. When you talked about the strategic plan, the 19th, that's a Tuesday. Were you thinking the 18th, the
No,
Monday night?
18th, whatever Monday
That's
night
right.
is.
Thank you. It's Monday night.
That's when we scheduled it last year.
Yes, that's exactly. That's fine.
Mark teaches on Tuesdays.
We had talked about moving it up.
Someone mentioned moving it up, someone mentioned they didn't want to move it up. There was no decision made by council, so I guess if council wants to move it up, I guess maybe let me know when you want to move it to.
For now, it's October 18th.
Yep.
It's fine.
When do we get the budget?
In September.
So, when are we bringing forward a decision on whether or not to issue an RFP on the water and sewer systems? It's been a month since we
It
met.
has, so American Water has talked to each of you. They want to come back, and right now they're on the docket to come back at a study session in 2 weeks and present something to you, and you would decide whether we want to move forward or not.
July 26th, they're doing the
July
study session.
26th, it will be on a study session.
Okay. Do we have any further updates on C-Click Fix?
We don't. I sent you out some information on a seminar, basically online seminar of a company that is a competitor to C-Click Fix. So, I mean, my thought, because we're talking software, all kinds of software, we should wait on that until we decide, rather than piecemeal and do something now, and in 6 months we decide something different, but
That's a good
council really
idea.
wants something, we can get it now, but
C-Click Fix is
That's,
the same company that we use for our website. That's just a additional piece of their
yeah,
software,
they've purchased that company now.
Okay.
oh, okay.
But we had issues with our database.
Well, so Public Works, it interfaces with Public Works database.
Right.
It does not interface with the other databases. What
we'll
your
have to look at-
software would do would be,
A big investment with software would get them all to
that's what
integrate.
ideally what we want.
So we don't want to add any more add-ons for subscriptions because we might not have
You
it.
can't, it's like a $10,000 add-on, it's not like it's $100,000, but again, then you have to install it and you have to train on
Train
it,
it.
so if 5 months
Deploy
later
it.
we decide we don't want to do that, then we've wasted that money and time.
And it doesn't work if we don't deploy it for the public to use it.
Well, I don't know if anybody else has any suggestions for how they handle, like, I mean, you're getting calls every day on this thing or this thing, and trying to have a system for following up to make sure that okay, it was done, or what's the latest status report? It's difficult.
You want to talk to that?
Yeah.
Because he's
So-
put something together.
Yeah,
that-
Moses.
I created a database, and it's just a Google Doc. So it's a Google form. Once I get a complaint from a constituent, I actually go out and fill out the form, and I've added Randy to the actual, to that form and to the spreadsheet. So he has the ability to see everything, and it gives it a reference number. So I have it, and it's just a reference number that I created. It has my ward and then the number. So I use that as a reference, and whenever I get an actual call, I print that document out and send it out to the resident. So they have now a form that they can refer to when they're calling. Randy can look into the database and actually see what step is it, where we are within the process. So it's a way for we can document where we are. Once it's complete, it just updates everything in the system. And then we send out another letter to the resident, letting them know what the status is. So it's a way for us to kind of have that information going back and forth with them. I'm doing it manually at this point because I'm sending the letters and everything, but that I'm okay with that.
And I've been tracking my stuff during the first 4 years. I had access to our ARC GIS software, so I actually can pinpoint it on the parcel map within my login. So I have a whole database on that I've been building over the past 3 years of tracking my constituent calls through that. I don't share it with Randy, but it's just a way that I can go right to the house and put the notes right into that.
So I plan on using this for at least a couple of months to try to build the database and then present that back to everyone and see if this is something that everyone's interested in. But of course, the see, click, fix, I mean, we have other software that's on the market that can do that, but
Right.
this is just a free version.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, just something that
It's free because you're free.
organized.
$6,000 a year.
it uses the systems that we already have. It's just part of the Google suite, so we just share it to whoever, and I'm just using it to try to streamline the process.
That's great.
And you manually, like, type up letters then and mail them out?
So when I fill out the form,
Yeah?
I just print off that information, and it actually uploads it up to the spreadsheet,
Oh.
and it gives Randy access to that, so he can see everything that's included on that.
That's great.
Can I make notes on this spreadsheet?
No,
But when you
s-
send it to the
You
resident,
said you mail letters to the residents, or you send?
Yeah, so whatever I'm going, no, I actually, yeah, snail mail. So whatever they are calling me on, I type that up into a document, giving them that reference number so they can have that. So if they call the city and say, what's the status on this? They can get the reference number. Instead of telling the story all over again, they have the reference number that if it comes to Randy, he can look and see that reference number and give the document. It's in Public Works or it's in CED. You can see all that in the spreadsheet, but it's based off that reference number.
Okay.
Can we have access?
Yeah.
That's great.
I can add you to it so you can see it.
Well, yeah, I'm curious how hard it is.
I want to get
My
it to the
glove
point
box is
where
full of notes, so this would be helpful.
I'm trying to get it to the point where I can actually get it on the site and then the residents can fill it out themselves, but I'm just worried about the security on that.
Oh, can they, like, add their email so you don't have to snail mail stuff?
It grabs it automatically.
Okay, all right. I just have one last question. So can you give us a progress report on the 2022 budget? Where we're at in the process?
I can get you one tomorrow. I have not seen it. It's not available to me yet. They're entering data right now. I know we've finished the payroll, and the payroll is, payroll basic verification is basically, do you need to make any changes on where that pay is allocated, or do you need to make, like, if you've got a new employee instead of an old employee, you want to reduce the salary, that type of thing. That part's been entered. Linda, you want to give an update of maybe where we are more than that, or I'll just send something tomorrow. That'd be easy. I'll send something out to everybody on where we are with the timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Move to adjourn.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Did you have something else to say?
No. I forgot it. It was on the agenda.
I assume there's no discussion on that, so I won't even ask. No. Roll call, please.
Alderman Gilbert,
Aye.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Keenan,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
6-0, motion carries. We are
Special law
adjourned.
Even for a move to adjourn?
Thank you. What?